So yeah, I'm glad I pulled this out. This is really nasty. And this was a key thing to where a lot of my smells inside was, because even though I painted underneath the hood, trying to do a nice job on everything, I could still tell when I got in the car, I could still smell burn. I'm like, what the hell is burning? They're still smelling. Oh yeah. You get more fire damage than you suspect, and this thing is crap. So I'm glad I'm going to change this. This is the driver's side. I had to slit this to get the accelerator pedal I'd already installed from Hippo over to burn victim, so that I can just pull this around the cable and not have to undo that clip again. Those little black clips are finite. And then you've got on the base of the floor your shifter cable coming up that goes into your steering column for your neutral not start, more or less, safety. I just razor knifed across this to get that out, because my dash up on there, where it's at position right now, it's disabling me from being able to get access to the driver's side very good. So on Hippo, I just sat the dash back in here. I'm always tripping and stepping over things. I get so much stuff in the way. So that dash, it's not screwed down in, it's just sat in there. So I'm going to lift that back out, drop the steering column back down again, and get that insulator, replace that thing out of this Jeep. I'm going to part out a lot on this Jeep, but a lot I'm going to keep just for spare parts and park it behind my shop back there. So yeah, it's quite a mess, more than I thought. And you can see how bad the firewall looks once I get that out of the way. But see, this will clean up. Where'd my light go? Oh, where's my light? Oh, here it is. I stuck it up on top. So yeah, this, now I've got the insulator out of the way, and it burned even a little bit of my seam sealer along those two panels. So I cleaned this all up real good, and I just throw a bead of caulking across there. You can see where the good part is still stuck, but over here it got loosened and burned and separated from the two pieces of metal. Body seam sealer is what they put on two body panels when they come together. Even though they're welded and fastened, they always use a seam sealer. My stepson's he's a collision expert, so I know a lot about this stuff myself, even though he's a lot more than that. I'm more the mechanical. But yeah, I can clean all this up. I can spray paint this. That'll take largely the smell. See, there's seam sealer too. It looks like it's probably damaged maybe. No, it's stuck still. I'll just clean it up, vacuum all the crap. A lot of this is brushing right off just by touching it, so the paint is burnt just like it was under the hood. I'm going to clean this up and paint it all. And the insulators that go around this before we put the tubes through, I've got some black thin styrofoam that may work for that. It's a hard styrofoam stuff. It's not quite meant for that, but it might be alright to use for that. Maybe I'll use some of that. Well, I'll see. I would like to seal those up, because you don't want air coming through from the engine compartment getting into the passenger compartment. You know, you're going to have engine heat out there. You can see the distributor. This will look good when I'm done. Okay, so I'm working on putting the insulator that I got out of Hippo, which is in good shape, into this Jeep. And see, I got the firewall all painted. But one thing I noticed, underneath this thing, I reached underneath the part that's down on the floor, pulling the carpet back to shove it in. I'm like, oh wow, this thing's wet. So I'm sitting here with a paper towel trying to squeeze the water out of the styrofoam that's on the bottom of this sound deadening amp, an insulation panel. And I have to tell you, when I was working on, or videotaped working on engine earlier and talking about harnesses and how that guy had shoved that cable for that brake controller he put in and just pushed out the grommet at where the hood release cable is coming through. May not be a bad necessary thing. I think it is a bad thing to ever do that kind of thing. because this is how you get water in your car. The bottom of the heater AC box has a knob on it that goes in that hole down here in the bottom. It's a footy. Now this is below the seam sealer, so this should be an enclosed chamber. And that's what happens if you end up bypassing a grommet. If you want to run something through, like, you know, like I did in my antenna, you just poke a little hole and go in next to it. Don't lift out the whole grommet and leave it out, because vehicles are made to try and keep things as tight as they can so you don't end up with that musty smell. That's what you get if you get wetness. This pad gets wet underneath the bottom, and you get the carpet wet and everything else wet. Well, that's going to increase moisture sitting against metal panels. Even if they're painted and they don't have that much on the inside, you can see where I didn't paint. It's just a thin layer of stuff. Rust, water will penetrate this. So this is, I finally got the main fuel injector engine harness out. This is the plug that goes to the computer, and this is that big main Molex plug that is mounted to the computer bracket. This goes all the way down the transmission. These are the plugs of the transmission, speed sensor, all that stuff, and I'll tell you, it was a challenge to get it out. So that's the next thing to go in. Now I am before I get working on this, because I'm going to clean it up too, talk about just about, you know, things are looking this good. Now, if you look back at the previous early videos, you'll see how bad this fuse box looked, the main fuse box. Let me grab a light. It takes a lot of elbow grease to make something look good again. I'm not kidding if I didn't say, if I said I spent a half hour at least on this battery tray to make it look that good. Computer, wiping everything down, wiping harnesses a little bit. I mean, you can swipe along a split tubing and clean the top surfaces, but it's not going to get into this inside of split tubing, so you can only make harnesses look so good. I've cleaned everything I've put in, and earlier videos of that, man, it was dirty. This is one thing I'm going to have to source out of the junkyard. I think Hippo's is also bad. It's got the hinge part, or no, the hinge back part is broken. So, well, this is the one that came out of Hippo. What am I thinking? And so I don't have a good top cap for this main fuse block under the hood. I'm going to have to get another one out of the junkyard. But to clean things, as you put them in, I only gave I spent probably a good 20-30 minutes also on the air box. Spent quite a while on the squirter box to get it good again. I mean, it was really nasty. Let me show you my next project now. I'm going to sit down to try and get this coolant bottle looking better. Because look how nasty this thing looks. This is kind of what I started with the squirter bottle. This is how nasty things were under the hood, and look how much damn battery acid there was. If you look at earlier videos too, when I'm pointing down, blowing in front of the battery, how much acid was left leaking all over. I'm gonna have to vacuum this crap up. Look at that. Look at how much battery acid is built up, splitting the rubber coating of the battery bracket even. Now, my black one, I had to clean up and repaint, and I've still got to get some standoff bolts to replace these. This one hasn't, degraded so far. It's too thin up here, but you can tell it's thinner. That's what they do. They just disintegrate over time. But I'm going to have to strip this off, clean it like I did my black ones, if I want to reuse this. These red ones you buy at auto parts stores that have the hook J bolts underneath leave wing nuts on the top and bolts sticking up, which if you don't make sure they're trimmed right, they could touch your hood maybe. I don't like those. I really don't like those. I really like the factory ones better mount. Maybe I won't even bother cleaning this since this one is so bad. I'll just see if I can find another one in the junkyard. I'm going to replace this accumulator as well. I'm going to get this thing running before I decide I'm really actually going to spend the money to put all new AC system stuff in it. But yeah, I'll show you this box, this coolant bottle here when I get done with it, how much better it will look. But I'm telling you, it takes time. This might be why we charge so doggone money for a used car like I reconstruct like this, because folks just do not understand the amount of labor hours that go into something like this. With an engine burn like this, and this much labor hours, crawling underneath it, having to get the transmission stuff undone. I thought I was going to have to drop the transfer case and pull the drive shafts out and everything. Eventually those are going to come out, but for me to just finish burn victim and get it going, that wasn't needed. So yeah, just stay tuned. Put a lot of work in it. Today I'm getting really dirty, having to get underneath the car.